Subjectively, what is the best VR solution being shown off thus far?
I did not get to see the Sony Morpheus and the Valve HTC Vive because like they were just booked wall to wall. The folks at Zotac actually met me in the Valve booth, and they're like, "Hey, like, let our friend Scott in to see your thing." And Valve was like, "I would, but every appointment is booked to the end of the show. You can come to our office in Seattle," but it was completely booked. What I did see, Jordan, was the Oculus Crescent Bay, which is the latest prototype that they have
Ah,
that has better optics. I think maybe an upgraded display, but I'm not sure. It may just be the optics. Anyway, it's higher res effectively, um, and it's super light on your head, and it's just they got to be close to shipping something because it is quite good. And I got to see 3 demos. Most of them, I think they're all on the NVIDIA Titan X chip, which was the new big GPU that NVIDIA announced at GDC that I now have to review. They're officially launching it on the 17th. Um, but Titan X was attached to the Crescent Bay, and it was like all this goodness was coming together. And they had a few things that were interesting about it, in addition to just like, okay, this is way lighter and better. Oh, they had audio integrated to the headset, so you don't have to wear a separate
ah,
audio thing. And then they have like a strap-on barf bag that you just put right at their hooks, and you just put it right. Not really, not really. Uh, but I thought that would be cool. Like I'm gonna do. Somebody in the comments has said you need to kickstart like a nausea relief bag for the. Um,
excellent.
but no, it is better. What was interesting was the demos I saw told the story of the content that they are coming up with for them too. So the first one was NVIDIA on the Titan X was showing a thing called Time Warp. Have you heard of this? It's Carmack's Time Warp. It's an Oculus thing, like John Carmack kind of came up with. That the graphics guys, AMD's got a version of it too. They're putting it into their drivers. The idea with it is if you don't have a frame ready to display quickly enough to update the screen when it needs to be updated for like a 90 hertz steady refresh, right? 90 cycles a second, like 90 FPS. Then they will take a prior frame and move it, like remap it. Even though it's a 2D frame, they'll remap it like in 3D space and reproject it to where like things need to be based on your head motion, and show you that. And it sounds crazy, but it turns out that like they can do that really quickly because it's kind of just like run a pixel shader, and it's like eerily convincing. Like it kind of works, and so the demo Nvidia had was they had a demo where it was just a regular like one of the older Oculus demos. You're in a room, you're looking around, whatever. But it was limited to 30 frames per second because to simulate a GPU limitation, and then and it really wasn't so detailed that it would be limited on the Titan X, but they were sort of showing. So without time warp at 30 frames per second, like it sucks. This is no good. Like you don't want that because it will make you kind of sick. It's not fun. It's not immersive. But then they flipped a switch and turned on time warp, and like had this sort of remapping thing going, and it got to be fluid. It looked pretty darn good. It looked. I mean, you could tell kind of that it wasn't perfect, but the image quality was awfully convincing, and it just was smooth all of a sudden. So it's like this black voodoo magic that they built in to stuff to allow more compelling graphics to happen in VR. Um, Even if that means that you get this thing that sort of compensates if you can't achieve the frame rate that you need with the graphics hardware that you have. So that was cool. The other thing, they had a Crytek demo where you're like uh, you play the part of a dinosaur that's just hatched, and then like this T-Rex comes up. I guess it's your mom or something. And anyway, it was a pretty cool thing because it was CryEngine based, and it was one of the higher fidelity things I've ever seen in VR. Um, and So that was neat. And the thing with that, Jordan, was you're standing up for it, It's actually not just seated, and there's like this mosquito that starts dive bombing you, and I got the like fight or flight response. Like you get the chills and stuff, and like it pretty much got me. Like it was immersive enough that I was like freaking So,
Wow.
and then the last demo was something that the Oculus was apparently the only ones who could show this off in their booth. They had worked with Weta Digital and taken assets from the Hobbit movies to create this demo they called Deep in the Shadows. And basically, you play the part of Bilbo in Smaug's lair, and you're inside the mountain, and the environment that you see, the VR environment around that you see, is like a little bit lower fidelity version of that gold-filled dragon's lair from the movie. And then like you move around a little, and then Smaug comes out, and they got Cumberbatch to voice this, or they used his voice,
Wow.
and like you have this high fidelity version of this dragon slithering around and all this. It wasn't interactive. You didn't get to do much, so it was maybe less fun than something that would be. But it was just super high quality graphics with super high quality assets, and it was a pretty cool, like, just projection of what you can do, what type of experiences you can create in VR. And all of that is a notch above the stuff that I've seen in past times. Every time one of these big shows comes up and I get my head inside of one of these headsets, what I see is better than what I saw, 6 months before or a year before.
Yeah, yeah.
They are progressing. And the amazing thing is, all the accounts that I've read about like what Sony's doing, what Valve's doing, etc., is that all three of them are really close now. Even Sony has pretty much like done a lot of catch up, and none of them have released a consumer product yet, which means nobody is putting out like the terrible thing that puts people off from VR. So I think everybody is kind of on the same page of, we're going to get this right, and when it goes out there, it's going to be good, so that it doesn't just become like a fad or a gimmick that goes away, but maybe has some staying power. So that was. I think they got their head screwed on straight about it. I hope that it all works out. I know Valve has said they're shipping Christmas this year,
Wow.
so it's all coming very soon.